Two things can be true at once. You can do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Candace Owens, I think she might feature heavy on this channel because we talk a lot about narcissistic people and sociopathy and behavior like that. And I think I'm going to have to take a good hard look at her. I've been watching her for years because I just think it's so funny how people are snowed. People are very snowed by the exterior, and she's an attractive person, and she speaks with that Ben Shapiro cadence of, when I speak really fast, that means I'm really smart and I do like this. Just as a side, she ripped off his whole style of communication. She ripped that shit off because she was not speaking like that prior to getting with the Daily Wire. So just as a little point of something that I've observed, she ripped him off. And that's that's what a lot of these sociopaths / narcs do when they're around people and they see that there's something that works for them. They rip it off. They assume other people's identity as a means of getting ahead. But I've been watching this woman with bemused interest, and watching people kind of fall in line and believe her, because the bitch is pretty and blah blah blah. And she speaks well, and she's one of the good ones. But if you just take a look at her and you look at her objectively, she's a fraud. She's a fraud. This lady doesn't give a shit about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a stepping stone, one of the many stepping stones that she has stepped on in her life to elevate herself to a position to get the thing that she wants the most. And it ain't money, and it ain't respect, and it ain't political influence. It is attention. This is a little attention whore. She don't give a shit about no Charlie Kirk. She don't give a shit about no Israel. She don't give a shit about Palestine. Okay? She doesn't give a shit about Brigitte Macron's dick or lack thereof. She don't give a shit about 99.99% of the things she has to say. You know why? Because she's a chameleon. Nobody changes that much. Unless you're a sociopath or just so divorced from yourself, there are a few things that are baked into the cake that makes you, right? And this woman has metamorphosized into whatever she has needed to be in order to go along and get along. So just a real brief history on her. So this girl, Miss, I'm so sick of black people complaining about racism, Miss. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and Miss, you got to have a thick skin and you can't let words affect you, which I agree with a lot of that. In fact, probably almost all of it. But there's a lot of evidence to the contrary in her behavior. You see, when this woman was admittedly a kid in high school, she had gotten into an issue, some beef with the other kids in her high school. Okay, none of these people are 18 years or over. And these kids called and left some racist, that thing she doesn't believe in, racist voicemails on her phone, calling her the N-word and, and all this. And, so what is good old dyed in the wool, I'm conservative, I'm not going to be a crybaby about it, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Miss Owens do? She taps on her daddy's shoulder, and her daddy taps on the shoulder of the head of the NAACP, and they all come down and they do the obligatory press conference, and we're coming at the school because they're not protecting this kid from racism. A whole voicemail. She needed to be protected from a whole fucking voicemail. That's the racism that was coming at Candace Owens. They were not burning crosses on her lawn. Okay, nobody sprayed nigger whatever on her doorstep. Nobody beat her up. Nobody put a noose in front of her house. Nobody did this. Nobody did that. Nobody vandalized her locker room or her locker. Nobody laid hands on this girl. Somebody called her up and said a few choice words to her, and all of a sudden it was a press conference. Because what I know about a person like this right? And again, I understand she was a child, but there are some things baked in the cake, and being an attention whore is something that I personally feel, in my personal opinion, is baked in the cake of who Candace Owens is, right? So there's the big press conference, and the family, is with the NAACP, which is the most archaic shit in the world. Let me tell you, if you are still called the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and we got a year with a 2 in front of it, you're not trying to do better. You're trying to stay in the past. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. I have my grievances with the NAACP. My grandmother was a member of that. I've not found them to be terribly effective, but that's my opinion, and there we go. So she taps in the NAACP, Miss Conservative does, and they sue the school for voicemails, okay? So that's the first indication that she's not who she says she is. The second indication is a little thing called social autopsy. And this was an initiative to have some sort of programming follow you around your social media, okay? And by you, I mean adults and children. Follow people around their social media and essentially monitor what they say. So let's say you're on Twitter, or you're on Instagram or Facebook, when people still gave a fuck about Facebook. Is anybody still on Facebook? I don't know. If you are, I don't know why you are. It's probably to keep in contact with your great aunt, Greta or some shit. But what they would do, and what she wanted to do, okay, that's an important thing. What she wanted to do was follow you. So if you got an argument with some guy on Twitter or in Facebook, and a racial epithet was said, if you drop the M bomb, if you drop this bomb, if you call somebody a bitch, if you do whatever, what they wanted to do with social autopsy, right, is take what you said, screenshot it, follow you, dox you, and fucking give that information to your employer if you're an adult, or give that information to the school you attend if you are a child under 18. This is your free speech warrior. This wasn't like when she was in high school, and this, the high school NAACP shit happened when I think she was like 15, 16. This is a woman in her 20s. This is a woman who has probably held jobs by that time, probably has some sense of how the world really works and how people really speak to each other. And we all know that it's not some sanitized fucking fantasy where your feelings are always considered and blah, blah, blah. Anybody who's lived and worked and filled out a W-2 knows that it ain't all kittens and cupcakes out here, right? So this is a full-grown fucking woman trying to come at you for words that you said online to someone that you're not physically beating up, to someone who you're not necessarily planning to do something to. This was a woman who wanted to get you for literally the wind passing over your not even the wind passing over your vocal cords. This is online. For you hitting keys on a fucking computer. She wants to screenshot that shit, go to your boss on Monday, so that you can get fired on Tuesday. This is your free speech warrior. This is your one who's going to expose, all the oligarchs and all the men who pull the strings behind the fucking scenes. This is your God. Okay? This is your God. And let me tell you something about your God. There's nothing authentic about her. There is nothing about her that is germane to her. Even the way she speaks, okay, is a complete ripoff of Ben Shapiro. If you look at, when the whole let's trash the woke and woke cringe bullshit and look at this woke, person, when all those videos were really big in like 2016, 2017, look at how Ben Shapiro debated. Ben Shapiro is now like a shell and he doesn't have vitality anymore because everybody knows what he is. He's a shill for Israel. He's vile. He's a little weasel. But back when he still had confidence and people still liked him and didn't know how much of a shill and a weasel he was, for a literal occupying fucking death machine, listen to the way he would debate. Hi, I'm Ben Shapiro, and, facts don't care about your feelings, and here I am, and I have this point, and actually, back in 1945, this person, blah, blah, blah. That's how he used to debate. If you go back and you watch, Candace Owens, coming out of the conservative closet video, right, where she called herself Red Pill Black, which, as an aside, wow, what a brilliant and creative name. You are red pilled and you are black. Wow, you're like a genius or something. You're almost like it's so simple and to the point. It's almost like, McDonald's or Coca-Cola. It's like a brand name you're trying to give yourself because you need attention, because you're a psycho. But if you watch her Red Pill Black videos, she didn't speak the way she speaks now, where everything's like this and it's very specific and concise, and it's almost like, hey, cut down on the coffee, because it's really interesting that like everything is just so, watch the old videos. She did not speak like that until she hooked up with Shapiro. When she hooked up with Shapiro, what she did, and what I suspect she does with everyone around her, because this is what sociopaths and narcissists do, who want to get ahead. They take, they pick and choose from all the little people around them, right? So they'll meet a guy who they like the way he walks because it shows confidence, and it's like, I think I'll walk like that guy. Or they meet a lady and they like the way she does her makeup because it confers upon her XYZ. It's like, I'm gonna do my makeup like that. So they just borrow. So she saw something in Ben Shapiro. The whole thing is debate culture. All these people do is live to provoke and fucking own the left and own the this. And as I've said in other videos, I'm not with the woke left. I'm not with the fucking we're right. I'm a human being, and I just believe in treating people with respect. Don't fuck with me, I won't fuck with you. That's the camp I'm in, right? But she draws what she needs from other people because she sees it's successful. And in her little brain, she thinks, well, if they're doing it and it works for them, I'll do it. You have to understand this woman's background. Okay, she was in dance, I believe. A couple eating disorders here and there, trying to be a reality TV show star, which is basically what she's doing now. Wanted to be an actress, wanted to do this, wanted to do that. The only problem is, and this is why she never made it as an actress or anything in entertainment in that world, the reason she didn't make it there is because as an actress, you have to be able to emote and show actual human feelings, right? You have to be able to, in a scene where you're the mother and your son is killed in action and war, you have to show that emotion. You have to make me feel the pain and the anguish of you as a mother losing your son, your child, your baby. You carried him for 9 months. We have to see that emotion on your face. That's why Meryl Streep got Oscars. That's why fucking Tom Hanks has Oscars. That's why Denzel has Oscars. Because they can show, they can convey, they can replicate, whether they feel it or not, human emotion. This bitch cannot. That's why I say out the gate, she don't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk. But getting back to it, so she's a failed actress, failed, whatever. She had a TED talk and shit talking about, the things we say on social media. We have to be very careful about what we say on social media. She was one of these little mean girls that when Trump came out, she, instead of debating his politics and his views on things, she was like, well, he's got a small dick. That's your leader. That's who Candace Owens is. A failed actress, okay, a failed, NAACP narc, okay, a failed doxer, because they shelved the idea of social autopsy after a while once there was enough backlash. And I think once she did one of these and saw that the country and indeed Gen Z and younger millennials were moving more to the right. So she's like, oh, I can't be on this ship. Let me jump ships, because understand there's no loyalty in these people. There's no loyalty in these people. I respect people who ride shit till the wheels fall off. Say what you will about AOC, that bitch believes that shit. You can't tell me she don't believe it. She believes it. As stupid as she is, as dumb as some of the shit she says is, she believes it. As much of a big liar as she is lying for a cause she believes in. I look in her face and I think there's nothing between those ears except for belief. Except for fucking belief, right? So say what you will. I'm getting lost in the woods, or the weeds here. But Candace Owens is not an authentic person. She cannot display, she cannot convey authenticity. Many people have called her out on this. Nick Fuentes, who, you know, I guess is supposed to be the internet boogeyman, and he's banned everywhere. Even though if you type in his name on YouTube, you see like hundreds of videos of people reposting his shit. So how banned is he? He called her out. He called her out and was like, "You don't give a shit about Charlie Kirk. You don't. You only care about attention because it's a very important, poignant issue now. It's not an important issue. It's one man who died. There are many others in the world who are dying, whose names we don't know. Are they any less important?" But he basically was like, "Look, you don't care. You want attention, and I don't blame Nick Fuentes for having a problem with Candace Owens. I saw that interview she did with him, where she basically called out his, not wanting to get married and this and that. Now, I'm not a Nick Fuentes apologist. We disagree on many issues. I have some concerns about him possibly being a Fed. I have some concerns about him being a populist that's going to lead people in some directions that might not be the best for America. I have some concerns about him, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. This man is right on this issue. There's a few issues I agree with him on, but on this issue, I absolutely agree with him. Because if there's anything I've noticed about Nick Fuentes, and again, I listen to everybody. I don't care if they're thought to be right, left, cool, bad, racist, non-racist, sexist, non-sexist. I listen to everybody. I make it my business to listen to everybody, right? Okay. I think this guy, lost my train of thought. I think this guy is right on the money about her. We don't have to agree ideologically. I think that's what I was going to say. He is a great judge of character. That's what I've noticed about him. He profiles people well. I also profile people extremely well. If you grow up abused by a narcissist, you learn to take the temperature of the room and to look somebody in the eye and download their information. I could sit in a room with you for 5 minutes and basically know what's going on with you. That's not a brag. That's something I had to develop for survival. So I believe Nick Fuentes has that ability as well. And I think he has called this bitch out successfully. Her going off on this guy about him choosing not to get married like she was his mother or some other condescending shit was absolutely cringe and stupid. She's like 3-4 years older than him, Shut up and go live with your billionaire lord husband, miss. I'm a conservative trad wife, but I do everything but stay home and cook and clean. As a conservative trad wife should do. I'm not saying that's what a wife should do. I'm just saying if you're going to call yourself a conservative trad wife and you're talking about make him a sandwich and he's the man and blah, 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 then you should be walking the walk. You shouldn't be sitting there hosting a show and now you're doing some Barbara Walters fucking type investigation bullshit. That's the thing. Just as an aside, all these conservative, but the hard right ones, conservative women sit there and they're like, your husband is the leader and the workplace is for a man. And what is a woman's remit in this life? To, bear the children, have the children, stay home with the children and take care of them and nurture them because you don't want them in the hands of babysitters and au pairs and maids and, daycares because they're going to filter in the woke left. And you're going to send your kid in and he's going to be wearing a G.I. Joe t-shirt, right? And then because the woke left is so contagious and they're so powerful and shit, your kid's going to come back in a dress and he's going to call himself Petunia, right? That's what's going to happen, guaranteed 100%. So if you're talking that talk and the stakes are that high, right? Because you don't want your son to turn into Petunia, you should shut the fuck up, go home, okay, and be a little wife and darn socks and meet him at the door with a smoking jacket and his martini and his slippers, because that's who the fuck you said you were, right? That's what you said you were, but none of them ever seem to do this. They always seem to be flying to this conference, to that conference. I'm like, wow, where are your children, lady? Again, this is what you said you were. It's not what I'm saying you should be, but this is what you said you were. So she's a fraud on all fronts, Okay? But to get to Charlie Kirk, okay? Charlie Kirk, much like Ben Shapiro, much like Social Autopsy, much like Red Pill Black, much like the NAACP lawsuit with the press conference and the cameras and all the attention and all the look at me, I'm a little victim until I decide that there are no victims. Less than 10 years later, when the political changes have come, you know, how do people like this bitch? Anyway, when you examine all that, you know that he was a stepping stone. Charlie Kirk was a stepping stone. And probably on his side, he's looking at her as like, okay, this black chick is here. She's articulate. You know, she's speaking really fast like Ben Shapiro. And she's, you know, she's good looking. And she wants to promote the message that I agree with. I'll bring this bitch on. She can be on my team. It's going to help me. We can court the blacks. We can get the blacks, which makes sense. That's a solid strategy, right? She's not charismatic enough or authentic enough for black people to follow her in the mass strobes that perhaps Charlie Kirk thought, you know, she would be, because he's not black and he doesn't understand what would attract black people. But she got enough of them that she was an asset. And on her end, she got to be, you know, a part of TPUSA, and then there's more attention, and then you get to hear more people, and then you get to engage in more debate culture and another brand. So you have the Red Pill brand, you have the Daily Wire brand, and now you've got the TPUSA brand. It's just like Coca-Cola 3 times, right? All this attention, which, you know, comes with money, and it confers upon you some sort of faux celebrity status. That is all this bitch has ever been about. Nothing about what she espouses to be ever matches up to what she does. Fast forward to 9/10, when this guy gets pew-pewed supposedly in the neck, even though it looked like he was pew-pewed from the back, and they got footage of a man hiding in the bushes, you know, and all this shit, you know, I don't know, maybe, you know, Mr. Tel Aviv and shit. But, you know, this guy gets shot. He dies, you know, and your first thought as a person who's known this man for years, your first inkling is to come out and be like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get to the bottom of this because I'm Candace Owens and I'm a trad wife. And I, you know, we don't need to think about Brigitte Macron's cock or lack thereof right now. I need to talk about this guy, Charlie Kirk, who I really haven't been around in a few years because everyone in the organization, figured out that I was a crazy bitch, and they kind of wanted to distance themselves from me. Plus all the LARPing as an anti-Semite, which I only do to seem controversial, but I'm really not that because I'm not really anything, because I really don't give a fuck about the Jews, and I really don't give a fuck about anybody or even Palestine or anything like that, or even American people. But I do like being provocational or promoting provocative, there we go, that's how you say that, issues, because once again I get all the attention. And if I can, you know, make people forget about the fact that I just accused a world leader's wife of being transgender, when really the issue shouldn't be if she's transgender, the issue should be if she's a fucking pedo. If I could take the heat off of myself by pretending to give a shit about Charlie Kirk, which again, I'm a sociopath, I care about no one, I care about nothing, then great, right? I get to seem like I'm righteous. I get to seem like I'm on a mission. I get to seem like this. Now, as I said, okay, it's very possible and often happens that you are doing the right thing for the wrong reason. She is coming up with receipts. She is coming up with text messages that showed how Charlie Kirk felt about Israel and all this, and his changing views and all this. And I applaud her for that. But I do not applaud the intention. This woman does not care. If you care about something, you have a sense of decorum. Whether Erica Kirk is in on the assassination or not, or whether Erica Kirk is just a plant, is just one of these reality TV bitches that somehow migrated into fucking politics or not, she's still his wife. You could have waited at least a couple days for the family to catch their feet, catch their breath, catch their bearings. You don't catch your feet, you catch your breath. You could have waited, but you chose not to because it's a hot issue and you didn't want to be left behind, you know? You didn't want to be the last person on the train. I look in her face when she discusses Charlie Kirk and I see nothing of humanity in there. I don't see a person who's heartbroken because her buddy died. And this man didn't just die. This man didn't just, drink a little bit too much, fall asleep, and never wake up. This man didn't, slowly fade away from pancreatic cancer. This dude was killed in a very violent way in front of his wife and children, supposedly. You couldn't wait. You couldn't wait. You couldn't even cry. Where are the tears? Where are the tears at? Oh, is that something you only do in private? So you can express outrage, okay? And you can express disapproval, but you can't express genuine sadness. I'm going to be watching this bitch. I'm going to have a series called Narc Watch, where we just pick a person and we pick them apart and we look at everything they're doing and we try to figure out, more about them. She's going to be gold for me. I'm going to use her the way she used Ben Shapiro and the way she used, the social autopsy guys and the way she used the NAACP. I'm going to use this bitch as a means to dissect, right? And perform an autopsy on how these soulless harpies work. These people who need attention, these people who have to be famous at all costs. More to come.